Greetings everyone, hey, how you doing? It's Matt Sella, and today we are doing a spoiler talk review for The Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 5, Gone with a Trace. This is Cadet Matt Sella speaking to his Admiral. How you doing out there, Admiral? Doing well in your base out there in the middle of space?
Indubitably, cadet.
And once again, Admiral, I am sorry for your loss. The tarantula dude Trench passing away. I know you're still kind of upset about that.
Trent served admirably in combat, Mr. Sella. These are grieved times for the galaxy.
Even though we're working for the Republic, you're grieving for a separatist general Admiral guy.
Don't question the story group.
But anyway, folks, let us begin with this spoiler talk review. I know things are crazy out there in the real world right now, but hey, we're not going to stop talking about some of our favorite shows and whatnot. Mark, why don't you let the fine folks know, what was this episode about?
Well, Matt, it was about Ahsoka, and after crashing her speeder in the lower levels of Coruscant, rather comedically, Ahsoka befriends Trace Martez, who offers to help her work on her speeder. Some thugs try and beat up Trace for money, and her sister Rafa doesn't trust Ahsoka, and eventually a robot goes crazy because it's a psychotic demolition droid. They chase it around the lower levels, and that's really about it.
Wow, that sounds really crazy.
It's quite the departure from the last 4 episodes.
Right. So, Mark, I'm going to hand it back to you here. What were some of your takeaways for this episode?
Well, I think I buried the lead, really. It was just so tonally such a departure, especially with how I kind of had envisioned Ahsoka's immediate departure from the Jedi Order and everything. Certainly maybe not, shall we say, as graceful as I had envisioned, especially with that fall there. It felt very cartoony. I will give it this, especially since it was the lower level and it had to be. I did find the lighting very pleasing for this episode. It's a nice episode to look at. Narratively, I'm not too sure about it. It's going to have to see where we go with this and these characters. But Trace was kind of inconsistent as to whether or not she's hardened and, having to live in this sort of situation, or, a nice person who really cares. Like, she contradicts herself a lot. I think she is ultimately a nice person who cares. That's why her and Ahsoka have a connection there. But it's just like, okay. I don't know. It was a weird episode, to say the least. I ultimately enjoyed it, but yeah, narratively, I'm not sure. Gonna have to see where this goes. The leader of the thugs that were shaking them down just had this really comedic voice. And that's not to say that crime lords in Star Wars haven't been rather comedic at times, but I was just like, okay, we're afraid of this guy. You're a Jedi, Ahsoka. Like, do something. I know she asked you not to, but like, come on.
Yeah, to kind of echo your sentiments, although I don't know if I would say I enjoyed this episode as much as you did, some of my takeaways would be is that I felt like that, yes, this episode was a great tonal shift from what Ahsoka has previously gone through. And what kind of bothered me about this episode as a whole is it very much felt like a merriment between leaning more towards the earlier seasons than the later seasons that I like, where things kind of got a bit more serious, more world building, entrenched kind of thing. And yeah, that part where Ahsoka falls down with her bike breaking apart, like just the way she reacted, some of the dialogue and the noises that she made, it felt more reminiscent of Ahsoka when she was like a kid, whereas later on in the series, like, yeah, sure, she was put in some dire situations, but she didn't react so goofy like. And that really kind of irked me a little bit. Not offensively, of course, but just felt like a step back from her overall story in terms of like personality. And to kind of continue on with Trace, what bothered me about Trace at first is I didn't quite understand where she was coming from. Like, she is essentially a good person. I think that's pretty much established by the end of this episode, but some of the dialogue choice for her earlier on, it kept contradicting itself, where she wanted to help. She said, oh yeah, it's the right thing to do. And then she'll offer the same thing again almost immediately after, saying like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Do you have money? Can you pay for it? But then she would say, okay, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll cover you right now. We're going to get this, this, and this. By the way, you want this for a price? And it's like, and I get it. She and her sister are both kind of low on cash, and so that they got to do this grunt work and dealings to make money for it. But I don't know, it just felt really weird to me. I'm not going to say wholly flawed, but definitely not as well thought out.
You know what ultimately this reminded me of, weirdly enough?
What's that?
This episode weirdly reminded me of that, especially with maybe it was the droid, but it kind of reminded me of that Netflix movie we watched that a lot of people were kind of saying was sort of a Big Hero 6 ripoff.
Oh, Next Gen.
And yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. Is that weird to say?
Not entirely. And I will say, to kind of continue off with some of my negatives before I hand it back to you, I thought the animation was fine in general, the 3D animation. Some of the acting and the dialogue actually had some good poses. The problem I had with it, though, is that it was still kind of floaty in some areas and not as strong as it could have been. And I know it's a TV show. You can't really put too much emphasis on polishing the animation, especially if it's so many episodes you got to release in one season. But I don't know. I felt like it could have been a little bit better, but it did have some good pose-to-pose moments. Along with that, I can see where you're coming from, Mark, because I did think that the animation, or at least the run cycle for the demolition droid, was actually pretty interesting. Like, it wasn't just like a generic run. You could actually kind of see the weight in it as it was like dashing around and climbing and banging shit up.
Oh, yeah.
So I will say that much. I think they did a really good job there in terms of animating the crazy droid demolition dude.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I do think the droid, weirdly enough, was a standout moment for me as well. But yeah, I mean, that I agree. The droid was certainly a standout, especially in the animation department. And that being said, still interested, still happy, excited. I just am not sure how invested I am in this particular little arc. I kind of liked a little bit of mystery when it came to what Ahsoka. Less is more sometimes. That's what I'll say. Less is more.
And I think for me, the kickoff of this new arc that we're probably going to be getting here, I personally am not entirely sold on it. I actually feel like it was a major step back in terms of how the characters were written, how they address themselves and things like that. It definitely feels like it's appealing more to the children rather than the progression of the audiences as the seasons continued in the past. So I'm not too fond of that. I didn't quite enjoy this episode, but I'm still open to see what happens next.
And I'm glad you feel that way, Matt. Now, as your commanding officer, take us home.
Yes, sir. Well, folks, you heard our opinion, but now we want to hear yours. Let us know in the comment section below, what did you think of this episode of The Clone Wars titled Gone with a Trace? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Share your thoughts. Join the conversation. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, and click that all notification things that apparently everyone has to do. And if you want to support me directly, please consider going to my Patreon, or if you want to do a one-time donation, please visit my Streamlabs. Links are in the description below. This is Cadet Matt Sella.
This is Mark.
Admiral Mark.
I know what I am.
Thanking you all for tuning in.